Aloha no ke anu e lue, a he wehi ano kauka. He hoa ka ua no ala kai, hulu pei ka nahele. E maliu mai, I ka leo kupuna, ma ke ala o ke ola. E huaka I kilohana, e kulia I ka du.
At the Shangri-La Museum of Islamic Art, Culture, and Design, art, architecture, and nature come together. In this place where ocean and land meet, we walk with a leader working to protect both. Dawn Lippert has built her career turning ideas into action for the planet. As CEO of Elemental Impact, she raises and invests millions of dollars in entrepreneurs building a cleaner, more sustainable future. Her passion for the environment started early.
When I was about 6, I used to charge my family a quarter when they left the light on and they left a room. And no one else in my family was particularly interested in the environment and waste like this. But I had this sort of sense of like efficiency from early on that I kind of channeled that way.
Where do you think that came from?
I don't know. I think I was born with it. I don't know.
You were born loving the environment.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's felt like it's always a part of who I am. So as I've like sort of learned more and more about working in the environment or sort of about our planet, it has seemed very clear to me that the planet doesn't necessarily have its own voice. So from like a social justice perspective and social impact, it's ultimately like the undefended. And in order for us to thrive as humans, we have to live on a planet that's thriving in terms of our oceans, our lands, our air, our water. Like all of these systems are absolutely core to humans thriving.
She grew up in rural Washington state, chasing soccer balls, exploring the outdoors, and dreaming up her next big project.
I also was always an entrepreneur. I always had a business going or a project going, making money, selling things, starting different like companies when I was little. And so I think in some ways Elemental is this sort of marriage of working on environment, working on companies with impact, and backing entrepreneurs, investing in companies that are really sort of like building the next generation of infrastructure. It's kind of been a natural marriage of those interests.
Tell me about little Dawn's entrepreneurial efforts.
I mean, everything from like lemonade stand to one of my, my first company, Dawn's printing company. So I made, greeting cards for family and friends, and designed cards. We had like one of those really early old school printers. So that was one of my early companies. But I've had sort of like companies and started organizations and companies in high school and college, kind of just throughout, just naturally. So find a gap and got with some friends usually and tried to start something to fill it.
Was that modeled for you through your parents or through mentors? I mean, most kids don't really take that path. Maybe a lemonade stand, but certainly not their own printing company as a young person.
I think it was just like not discouraged. Like I could just try a lot of things, experiment with things. Now as I sort of like look back on it, I think this idea of just being able to start things, experiment, like it's okay if things don't work out.
That willingness to experiment, to take risks, defines Dawn. She's also deeply analytical with 2 degrees from Yale University, a BA in Environmental Studies, and a master's in Environmental Management. She started out in conservation, but her fieldwork led her to climate change.
I did a senior thesis on turtle conservation in Puerto Rico, and there were all these threats to sea turtles in Puerto Rico. And so I was studying, the human threat and of like people poaching them, predators, other kinds of threats. But then halfway through the summer when I was there was a huge hurricane and most of the turtle nests on the beaches were wiped out. And so it really dwarfed the impact of like sort of individual poachers or individual predators. And I started getting a sense that what was happening in climate change was sort of dwarfing all of these other specific issues that I was interested in, because climate was just sort of this mega trend that when we have extreme weather events, we have giant fires, when we have hurricanes, floods, the amount of human suffering and damage to the environment is really overwhelming a lot of other forces.
After Yale, Dawn went to Washington, D.C., working at a consulting firm on clean energy, which is how she came to Hawaii.
One of the projects I was first staffed on was the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative. And this is an incredibly exciting project. It was unprecedented in terms of the federal-state partnership to completely transition a place from fossil fuels to clean energy. And I think sometimes in Hawaii, we don't even realize that level of leadership that was so strong in this time. This is about 15 years ago, starting in 2007, 2008. And there was this huge impetus and real agreement among business, among policymakers, the nonprofit sector, students, that this was something that was needed. And so I was really fortunate to be able to work on that project with some incredible leaders at the state of Hawaii and the Department of Energy.
And when did you decide to make the move to come to Hawaii? How did that happen?
Well, I had gotten to know my mentor, Maurice Kaya, who was leading the energy strategy for the state for about 20 years. And he was who I had worked on the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative. And he and Dennis Teranishi and Harold Masamoto and a whole group of people were very interested in this idea of what if you could not only have Hawaii transition from a policy perspective, but to have a role in the technology that would have a place in that transition. And this was a really sort of different idea. How do you not just import wind turbines and solar panels and all the technologies, but how do we create some of that here? And so that was the initial impetus behind Elemental.
Elemental Impact is a nonprofit that invests in companies working on climate change solutions. Under Dawn's leadership, over the last 15 years, they've invested in 160 companies. The returns on those investments go back to the nonprofit for the next round.
We've invested in a whole bunch of companies that are now actually very large companies that over the last decade or so have become large companies and have big projects. So, like Fervo, one of the biggest geothermal companies now operating in the country, building one of the biggest geothermal projects in Utah. That's sort of the first and biggest enhanced geothermal project in the country. Energy storage companies, companies working on agriculture, companies working on fertilizer, clean water. We've been able to be at the early part of that journey for many of these companies as a nonprofit investor. And then a few years ago, we also spun out a venture fund to invest in companies with a for-profit lens as well. So just really thinking about how do we do what no one else is doing in this space? How do we ensure that companies that we're investing in are not only have really interesting technology, but we think that's about half the solution, but are actually working directly with communities where they're implementing and benefiting those communities. So we always kind of say at Elemental, technology has half the solution, the community brings half the solution. Unless you're actually really working both, it's a pretty incomplete picture. And that's what living in Hawaii has taught me and starting Elemental has taught me.
Still ahead, Dawn's life moves fast, but she never says she's busy. She reveals why, coming up. Kapiolani Park is where Dawn Lippert feels most connected to Hawaii, a place where for her, family, community, and the simple joys of daily life come together.
A lot of my life in Hawaii has been lived in and around this park. I've lived in this neighborhood for about 16 years since I came to Hawaii. My daughter learned to ride her bike right on this path, and my son's scooter is right here. And this is where I played soccer, every single day after work. So this park to me sort of symbolizes community and coming together of a lot of different walks of life and kinds of sports, and a public place where people can be in nature, be with family, be with community.
What do you think it is about connecting in those outdoor spaces? I know that when I'm in the water with my children, I feel like a really deep, profound connection to them in a way that you don't necessarily even get when you're sitting around a dinner table or doing things at home.
I think the outdoors just leaves room for a spark of discovery in a way that being inside doesn't. So there's always something kind of funky or new in the ocean, right? That you're sort of what is that? And so I think that sort of spark also leaves a lot of room for imagination. And my kids love to pretend they're sharks and attacking us, or some other kind of undersea creature, megalodons, or seahorses or something. And so I think it's the spark of unexpected when you're in nature is also a great catalyst for imagination.
You travel a lot, you're handling a lot of things, but then you're also a mom of young kids. How do you find balance in your life?
I think I just get a lot of energy from doing each of those things. And I hope that being, really trying to be good at my job also makes me hopefully a better mom. There's so many things that are actually like interesting parallels between running a company and then like being part of a family, in terms of like learning to communicate and learning how to organize, learning how to like assign roles, and learning how to like together make decisions, make people feel heard. Like there's so many parallels that I find really helpful.
What's interesting to me is that when I interact with you, you're a very busy person, but you never lead with that you're busy. Like you always seem so excited and enthusiastic about whatever you're taking on. How do you maintain that kind of positive energy, honestly?
Well, I don't believe in saying I'm busy.
Tell me more.
I think I just have like found over time that I would just like to be focused on what I'm focused on, but sort of saying I'm busy like sounds like you're sort of saying like I'm like very important or I'm like all over the place. I think, I try to do a lot of things, but I like really do things I think are the highest priority things to do. So I don't feel like my time is like taken up by things that are not important. Like I really like to be super focused and really intentional about what I'm spending time on.
I mean, I really love that because I do think that I'm busy feels like, in the mommy world, it feels like a flex.
The words you say matter so much. And if you say like, I'm so frazzled or like I'm so busy, like I think that is like the energy then you feel. And then I think you can be the same amount busy, but if you interpret it as like, I'm focused or I'm like driving toward this milestone, it just like, it gives you a different energy around it than just sort of saying like, I'm busy, which to me sort of means like, I'm like all over the place, right? And so I guess like, to me, I like really try to avoid the word busy because it feels like you don't know where you're going. You're just like all over,
Words matter. So do values. As CEO of Elemental Impact, Dawn has met thousands of entrepreneurs and says the strongest leaders share a few essential traits.
The first one is humble spirit. I think is like unbelievably important to have humility as a leader and just always be in learning mode, because there's so many things that all of us don't know. And I think the biggest thing standing in the way of learning them is like not being humble enough. The second one is growth mindset, which is related, right? Which is like always growing. That is, I would say, like non-negotiable in every single person that we hire, but also person we invest in. The third is kuleana, understanding sort of your place in the world, but also your own personal responsibility and taking responsibility for things. I found that leaders that I really respect are really good at taking responsibility when something happens, and like taking maybe like an edge more responsibility than they necessarily have to. But I think that makes people strong leaders. And then the third one is joyful work. And I think that's like pretty key. Like we all spend a lot of time doing it, and if we can make it enjoyable for those around us, I think we're much more likely to have success.
When you're investing in a company, are you investing in the idea or are you investing in the individual?
We're investing in both, and sometimes weighted more one way or the other. I think what I've realized over time is that great ideas with B+ individuals have a very low chance of working out, but B+ ideas with great individuals can be very successful because you can always change the idea.
Coming up, Dawn's philosophy on saying yes, even or perhaps especially when the outcome is unknown. Dawn Lippert invests in bold ideas and the people who can make them happen. To her, every breakthrough begins with some risk. It's the only way to move forward.
I really love Noah Thompson's sort of philosophy. Which is more dangerous, the pirate, the storm, or being tied to the dock? I really love that because I think people often don't do things because they don't know how they will turn out, but not doing something is also a decision. So I think that he really exemplifies that you're making a decision to stay tied to the dock.
particularly in the environmental space. If we stay tied to the dock, as we know, at least on these islands, we'll be drowning.
The planetary indicators across every single indicator are really scary. And they can actually kind of like paralyze you into like a sense of doom. So I think the only imperative is to act. I mean, I actually think that the only real way to react to that kind of data is to figure out like what can you uniquely do and then really just like start marching along that path.
These problems can feel so overwhelming. How do you not get paralyzed when we think about just what climate change is bringing to us right now already and what it could bring in the next decade or even less, really?
Yeah, and it's happening now, like you're saying. I mean, this is happening now. I think people thought, oh, climate change, that'll happen for my kids. Like, let's save the planet for my kids. That is like no longer the vibe, right? This is happening now to our communities. There are two things that really help me from that like sense of paralysis. One is that a few years ago, a big report came out from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which publishes these, it's where like hundreds of governments around the world and thousands of scientists come together and publish these reports of what's happening. And what they noted was that there are absolutely like thresholds where things change, but also every single ton of greenhouse gas emissions makes a difference. So it just like gave me the sense of like, oh, every single ton that I avoid by like driving an electric car, by not doing this, by investing in this company, by voting for someone that supports clean energy, every single thing I do actually makes a difference in the scheme of things. So this is not a problem that, once you get to like 1 million, it's over. It's like, it's an incremental challenge. And then the other thing that really keeps me energized is that I just like wake up every single day and like think about the action that I can take. And so I think working with entrepreneurs is inherently super energizing compared to working in some other parts of climate. Because I literally work with people who wake up every day and just like run through walls and make stuff happen and kind of pull off the impossible.
Yeah, speaking of pulling off the impossible, do you think that we will reach those energy independence goals? I mean, the reason that you came to Hawaii was to help us get there, right? Do you think that the state is in line to actually achieve that?
I think so. I mean, I think we still have a lot of alignment here. I think one of the things that is really special about Hawaii is having made these long-term commitments and said, this is where we're going. And that took a lot of political courage at the time, and I think continues to take political courage to see it through, because sort of like getting there is a lot of small decisions along the way, many of which are not popular. Because a lot of what you're doing is like going against the status quo, right? And so you have to sort of address that very real loss to businesses, to developers, to various sort of stakeholders across the value chain. Because when you're making a transition, like by definition, there will be like some people who lose in that transition. And so I think having like a steady hand, a steady state saying, this is where we're going. We know that there will be a lot gained in terms of economic stability, in terms of affordability, in terms of jobs, and we have to stay the course. I think we're in a pretty good place there. I mean, we obviously have sort of like fits and starts here around it, but I have faith that we will stay the course.
You had said that you have to be willing to fail and then move on. How are you able to not stay in failure when they happen?
I don't know, but I mean, I often like think about this because someone will tell me, oh, remember that person that we pitched for our fund and they said no? And I'm like, oh, I don't remember. I think it's just like, I just immediately drop it and like move on to the next one. I have a lot of memories of people that said yes. But I think it is, it's like forward momentum, moving forward, moving forward, moving forward. And Dennis Teranishi once told me, when I worked with him and he was really part of the sort of the early DNA of building Elemental, he said momentum is something that's like so hard to get. And once you get it, you just like hang on for dear life. Like you wrangle that, like don't let it go. And I think that is part of like just sort of moving through failure. And really understanding that failure also is a lot of learning. Like you cannot learn without failing. And so in a way, like that's a gift too. So if you can just really say like, okay, well, we didn't get that, or this company blew up, or this thing happened, but like, we won't make that same mistake again, or we'll look at this in a different way. And so we're just building. So I think like failing is just part of building.
How do you sustain that ability to keep running through walls and to keep the thing that strikes me about you in knowing you over however many years is that you are always on the move. You're always on a plane, you're always going to speak somewhere, like you are always going. And it seems like just an incredible level to sustain.
To me, like that gives me a ton of energy. And I also realized when moving here to Hawaii, like it struck me over time that if you could say yes to like almost everything, you don't know the things that are going to be high impact in the long term, like today. You just don't have that visibility. But the more you can say yes to, then doors start opening, and then like things get sort of like easier or more clear, and you can like build more clearly. So I think I always just really, if I get an opportunity, I really try to say yes.
I think a lot of times we're always talking about, how do I have more boundaries? How do I sustain myself? So it's interesting that your default is yes, when I think a lot of our defaults is no.
I think it also has to be like yes in your lane. Like I don't say yes to like everything, but I know these are the things I'm trying to get done, and anything that I think can like help me do that, I'll say yes to that. And then there's other people on the team or other people in the ecosystem that can do other things. Like an example is working with really early stage companies. Like Elemental, you might think works with really early stage companies. We actually work with companies that usually have at least 10 people, have raised a few $1 million, they have a working prototype, we're funding a project in a community, they're later stage companies. And we've learned over time that we're not the best people for super early stage companies. So we find other places to send them and other people that can help them, but we are super focused. So once you have your focus, then you say yes to things like in that target, because you don't know which ones will necessarily pan out. But I think it's like starting with focus and then saying yes. Because I think if you're unfocused, you'd just be like, oh my God, like there's way too much, right? So it's focus and then saying yes.
I'm interested on how you sustain yourself to work towards a goal that may never be done, right? I don't know that we're gonna solve climate, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna mitigate some of the effects.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like a solvable problem. I hope I'm wrong on that.
Yeah.
But when you're working toward a goal like that you might not actually get to realize the benefits, how do you keep going?
Yeah, I think you're right. And sometimes I do say solve climate change, and then I always catch myself and say like address climate change, but I think it is the sense that like each incremental species you save or person's life you save or town or village that is saved because of these efforts, like that has value. And so it's not about like seeing the whole elephant come together. And, I think, by 2051, like we will have solved this and we'll be on to the next thing. Like I know that this is a lifetime of work and multiple lifetimes of work. But I also think that every incremental piece we do has value.
What's the best advice that you've ever received?
I wasn't sure about this advice when Dennis first gave it to me, but his advice was the most important choice you make in life is who your partner is. And I think that over time I've really seen that to be true. I was really fortunate to, meet Brody before this whole sort of journey started and marry him and create a family, and I do think that's an incredibly important choice. But I also would expand that to the people that you work for and the people that you work with on a team. Because these are people that, we've built together for many years, and the people on my team. I mean, I would do anything for them, and they're just, they're thought partners, they're friends, they're innovators, and they're really like sort of true partners on the journey of life. Like whatever any of us end up sort of doing, we've like been building together. And so I think that advice from Dennis around, your partner is a kind of a key decision in life, but so are these partners that you choose to build with or choose to surround yourself with or build teams with over time.
In work and in life, the right partners make all the difference. A reminder that none of us succeed alone. For A Leader's Journey, I'm Yanji Denise.